So last time we did finish a little bit into linear relational algebra, but let's just quickly recapitulate. So relation, we know what relations are. Relations are like we have seen tables, relations with attributes. The attributes may look like this. And one real example can be a table with links between URLs, URL1 and URL2. The schema is a set of attributes, is the set of attributes rather. And we have selection, projection, union, intersection, join, these standard operations. We also did this last time, just reminding you that selection, which is in SQL, if you remember, you write select star from some table where some condition is satisfied. Then this is trivial because you apply the condition selection on the condition during the map phase. Right? So you do it in the map phase, you only output the tuples as keys which are which satisfy the condition you need, and then the reduce doesn't have to do anything. Why do we have to output the tuple as the key and not the value? Because there may be too many such tuples. The tuples were distributed in the data in the file system HDFS to start with. So there may be too many of them. Even after selection, there may be too many of them. So if you choose some different key, then there will be a shuffle. You don't need that. You just need to filter. Selection is more like a filter here. Okay. So now we will do union. The union of two relations R and S. Suppose R and S have the same schema. Okay. And then what will happen is we need to generate another relation, the R union S, so that they only contain the union, and basically it's like removing duplicates. So the map tasks will be generated from chunks of both R and S. I'm actually sorry, this there was seems like a bit of animation problem. So let's just look at this version of the slide. I will correct the animation thing later. So for each tuple, what we do, we simply just like selection, but there is no condition here. We just have to output everything. So for each tuple, either from table R or table S, we output the tuple comma 1 in map. Now what can happen in reduce? We only need to remove duplicates. So a tuple after the map may be present once if it was present in either relation R or relation S, or it may be present twice if it was present in both tables. In either case, for all key, the keys are the tuples. So for all keys, you simply output it once in the reduce. So reduce is basically every key will be present only twice or once. In either case, you output it once. So it looks like union is also very trivial in with MapReduce. It's clear, right? If there is any question, just stop me. Instead of writing in chat, just speak out. Okay, so let's move to the this one, and this is more interesting and not that trivial anymore. So let's do natural join using MapReduce. Other kinds of joins also will be similar if we see how natural join can be done. So the task here is there are two relations R and S. Let's say to simplify, R with attributes A and B and S with attributes B and C. B is the common attribute, so natural join will try to join R and S on the attribute B. As you can see, just remember your database scores that if you have this AB and BC, two tables, then hopefully I have done it right. You have M is common in both tables in column B. So XM1, ZP 3 and WQ4 and nothing else, right? So Y is not present in the right table, sorry, N is not present in the right table and R is not present in the left. So this is what you're going to get. Now, again to remind you, the tables are going to be distributed. So don't think of them as relational database softwares like Oracle or MySQL. Think of them as text files, comma separated text files, which look like tables. So you may have 10 nodes in your cluster, and each of those have a lot of data with comma separated text files. However, of the same schema, either of the schema R or of the schema S. So what we need to do now? Just recall what we did for matrix vector multiplication. There we chose the index I as key because that's what we needed to group by. Here we want to join by the attribute B. So naturally we would think that should have something to do with the key we should choose, right? So the map for every tuple of R, for every tuple A, B of R, we will map it to the key value pair B comma RA. Now B is the key, RA is the value. Now you can think of this as just B is the key, A is the value. R is not the whole table. R is just a flag that this key value pair is coming from the table R. Okay, we'll need this. If it's coming from S, T equal to BC, then we'll emit the key value pair B comma SC. So basically it's B comma C. B is the key, C is the value, but we need to remember that it came from the table S. Why? Because when we join, we have to remember which one should come on the left and which one should come on the right, right? So it should be XM1 and not 1MX. That's why we need to remember, okay, X came from R and 1 from S. So then what will happen? All the, each individual value of B will be grouped, right? Because they are the keys. And for each key, then each key B will be associated with several values that are of the form either RA or SC. There may be multiple of them. In this particular example, I don't have that. There is only one value of every attribute, but it's very much possible that there are multiple values of multiple entries like XM and then some YM in the first table and so on, right? So there will be multiple values of the form RA or SC with every B, and we just have to cross multiply all of them, right? So every such RA has to be combined with every such SC to produce the triplet, in this case of A, B, C. So this is how we will do natural join using MapReduce, right? Again, the key point here is how to choose the key. And because we are joining on attribute B, that should be the key. If we are joining on multiple attributes, then the combination of those will have to be the key. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine, thank you. So, so the natural join actually is going to be a very important part of whatever we do in MapReduce later on. Yes, anybody has a question?
Sir, what happens if while grouping we get more, I mean, one computer cannot hold all the elements in a group and one group?
Okay, right. So the question is, what happens if, let's say, a particular value, for particular M, particular value of B, let's say M, right? So there are too many key value pairs corresponding to M, comma, and then, you know, from the left side as well as right side. Now, the idea here is we need to understand how the data looks like. Given that your both tables R and S could be stored in the nodes, I mean, in a distributed way, yes, it is possible that for all the rows of the tables, both tables, the value of the attribute B is the same, but then it's redundant, right? I mean, then you shouldn't have it. You remember normalization. So the point really is that usually that doesn't happen. If that happens, then it's like you did not understand your data, so it's bad programming. See, if you choose a key which will be present too many times, and so many times that not all key value pairs of that key can fit into the disk of one node, then that method cannot work. It is similar to, so it is analogous to, so let's remember C programming or some other normal programming. You have to do something for which you need memory more than what you have. And then you try to allocate that much memory and then you get segmentation fault, right? So it is similar to that. So you have to understand your data and appropriately you have to choose the key so that such a scenario will not happen. However, it is always possible, I mean, not always possible, in some rare cases, it is possible that, well, you made a mistake or the data is really bad, then the thing will crash. Okay, so that is the bad thing. All right, so let's move on. Grouping and aggregation using MapReduce. So again, grouping and aggregation is one of the very common database operations. Just reminding you, if you have a table like this, AB, right? Then what you want to do is select A, sum B from the table R, group by A, right? So, and the result you're going to get is this below. The great thing is group and aggregation on a relation. So what we have to do is group and aggregation on a relation RAB using the aggregation function gamma B. Now gamma in my particular example is summing. It can also be max. It can also be mean. It can be count. Some kind of aggregation function, right? Group by A. So the map will have to do really nothing because grouping comes for free with MapReduce, right? So the shuffle is basically grouping. So the attribute group by is all that needs to be the key. So map will not have to do much. So the map is essentially the identity function, but the key has to be chosen properly. Obviously, if you are grouping by B, then B has to be the key. Okay. Yeah, I think I lost my internet connection for a while. I hope now I'm back. All right. So reduce, on the other hand, is just the aggregation part. So now you are getting a feel of usually what map is. Map is deciding what to group by, and reduce is the aggregation part, right? So usually reduce does the aggregation part, and in this case, reduce will do the sum. In other cases, in a more general case, you will have for every group A comma B1, A comma dot 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 BM, if for the key A, there will be other keys also represented by the key A, you will apply gamma to obtain the aggregated B for A. All right. So this is grouping and aggregation using MapReduce, and it's kind of trivial or very intuitively easy. Now, having done all this, especially join and grouping and aggregation, now we will move on to the more interesting problem of matrix multiplication using MapReduce. I hope you understood the concept of join and grouping and aggregation using MapReduce so far. So we have done matrix vector multiplication before. Now we are going to do matrix multiplication. So the picture is clear. We have an M cross N matrix, and we want to multiply by an N cross L matrix. And we will get M cross L. So yeah, and the entries of the new matrix C are going to be Cik will be sum of Aij Bjk over all j, running from 1 to n, right? So the idea here is we will think of a matrix as a relation with 3 attributes, or a table with 3 attributes. Okay, so what are the attributes? The attributes are the row index, the column index, and the value. So the matrix A will be represented by the relation I Aij, where if the entry is Aij, then just storing the value is not enough, right? We need to store, okay, what is the I, what is the j. So I is the row index, j is the column index, and Aij is the value. And these three, the triplet, uniquely determines one particular element of the matrix. So for every non-zero entry, the row number is the value of I, the column number is the value of j, and the entry is the value in v. Similarly, we do the same for the matrix B, right? The advantage also in this case, and that is the most practical approach for large data sets. Usually most large matrices would be very sparse. That means most entries will be 0. So you don't have to store the entries which are 0. So in your table, representing the matrix, you are only storing the non-zero entries, because in a matrix multiplication, the 0 entries will not have any effect. And then this is the key idea. The matrix product, I mean, computing that is analogous to a natural join followed by a grouping with aggregation. Two MapReduce processes. First one will be a natural join, and second one will be grouping with aggregation. So everyone, since I cannot see your expressions, is this part clear, that the matrices are represented as tables?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So let's move on. So we'll see how it is analogous to a natural join followed by a grouping with aggregation. So what we have now, the same matrices, but I have just written them as tables also. Ij, Aij is the first matrix, Jk, Bjk is the second matrix. What will happen if I join the first two, I mean, join these two tables, right? So natural join of the table A and table B will produce join on B, right? So it will be join on B. So it will produce Ijk, Aij, Bjk. So it will produce tuples of size 5, right? And you already start to see the advantage here, that ultimately we need Aij, Bjks, right? And we only need to group by J. But it's not all done yet. So let's move on. So the natural join will produce Ijk, Aij, Bjk. To see the details of it, the map has to be, for every Ij, Aij, we'll have to output J, comma, and then the rest of the value I, Aij, and remember that it came from table A. And similarly for table or matrix B, Jk, Bjk will go to J, comma, Bk, Bjk. Now reduce, obviously the same J's will be grouped together. So we will be able to multiply Aij, Bjks, right? So reduce will be for each key J, and for each value Ai, Aij, and Bk, Bjk, we will directly multiply Aij, Bjk. Okay. So in the gray font I have written, so think of that as the first thing. Okay. So what we can do is we could output I, K, Aij, Bjk. But what we can do some work for the next MapReduce task in advance. So the next MapReduce task we'll have to group by Ik, because we have to produce the entry Cik for the final matrix. So what we do, instead of outputting a triplet like Ik, Aij, Bjk, we'll directly produce a key value pair Ik, comma, Aij, Bjk. So that our next step is just very straightforward grouping and summing. All right. So the next step, the first MapReduce then has produced the key value pairs Ik, comma, Aij, Bjk. And then we'll do another MapReduce, and that is just group and aggregate. So this is group by Ik. So map is just identity, because we have already created the key. We have already chosen the key value pairs. Chosen the key and created the key value pairs. So it is Ik, comma, Aij, Bjk. We don't really have to do anything in map. So essentially we don't even have to read in map, right? So map is identity. So that saves somewhat. And reduce is, well, the IKs are grouped together. So for each key Ik, we produce the sum of all values for the key. All right. So yes, so let me just pause a bit for the time being and just verify that all of you have understood. If there is any question, let's if there is a question or doubt, let's just address that. Anybody? Okay, so see, there can always be the case that a few people understand it totally and others may have certain problems, but everybody, please don't be shy. Please ask doubts if you have any. All right, so let's then move on. So this was matrix multiplication. Now, this was a matrix multiplication with two-step process, like, so two MapReduce processes. One MapReduce finishes and the output of that MapReduce goes as the input of the second one. What we will do is we'll see a method 2 where we want to do it in one MapReduce instead of two. But the question is, of course, if we could do it, why didn't we do it before? So we'll see that it may not always be really possible or nice to do. So let's see how that can be done. So a method with one MapReduce step will be the following. What is the idea? The map, so if we have to do it with one MapReduce step, it is clear that our key has to be IK. Key has to be IK because ultimately we have to sum Aij Bjks for every IK, every pair IK. So the key has to be IK. So what we do is we guess, okay, not like uncertain guess, we guess with certainty that for every element of matrix A or table A, and for all possible values of k equal to 1 to L, we generate key value Ik, comma, Aj, Aij. Okay, for this, you need to know how many k's are there. So you need to know the size of the matrices. So assuming that you know the size of the matrices to start with, or rather the largest indices to start with, you can do this. Of course, if you don't know that, then you cannot generate for all k equal to 1 to L. Similarly so the idea is the final key has to be the IK pairs. So create all possible IK combinations as key upfront. Similarly, for the second matrix, for all I equal to 1 to M, so for the first matrix, we have to generate for all K, and for the second matrix, we have to generate for all I. The key values Ik, comma, Bj, Bjk. So we generated a lot of key value pairs. And then the reduce will be, now this is not just so simple anymore, because for every Ik, now there will be many values. So for every Ik, there will be Aij, J, comma, Aij and J, comma, Bjk for all possible J, I and K, right? So what we have to do, we have to sort the values Aj, Aij and Bj, Bjk by J and group them by J internally within the reduce operation. It's like we are doing one group within reduce, and then for each J, we multiply Aij, Bjk and sum the products for the key Ik to produce this. Now, do any of you see what could be the problem in case the data is really large? So if the data is very large, then what happens is this so many values Aj, Aij and Bj, Bjk may not fit in the main memory of the single node where all the IKs have been sent, and then you may have to resort to expensive external memory sort. External memory sort is more like, you sort a part of it by block and you write it onto the disk and then sort the next, and then do this and then do a merge sort kind of thing. So that's one possible external memory sorts. External memory basically means that it's not possible within the RAM, so you use other memory somehow, and that then is not efficient at all. So the point is, if your data is not so large that this kind of scenario can happen, then you can do this. And then you actually also take advantage of using the memory for a lot of work. But if the data is larger, then method 1 is more practical. All right, any questions?
Sir, what is the point of sorting all the values by J?
Okay, so let me try to explain. Okay, let me Let me actually move to can you see my which screen can you see?
Yes, sir.
Do you see my screen?
This slide.
Yes, the complete screen we are seeing.
You see the slide, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Or a white screen?
Not the white screen.
Oh, then I'm sorry. We have to do it again. Stop share. Then yes, this one and then this one. Yeah. Okay. So right. So see the point was that so for each j what we have is we have uh, ai, right? So no, so I'm sorry, this is for each ik. What we have is we have a j and then aij and b j b jk. So how many of them are there? So suppose our matrices are a is m cross n, b is n cross l, right? So for each, so how many iks are there? So for each ik we have n j's. So how many this entry will be there, j comma aij. So there are n j's and mi, so there will be mn, right? Okay, and similarly there will be nl entries here. So essentially we'll have so many. Now the point is ultimately we need to do aij bjk bjk below here. Ultimately we need to do aij bjk and sum for j equal to 1 to n. For that, I need to have aij and bjk of the same j together. What we have here is we have for the same ik, we have these things. But it's still a huge list of mn plus nl entries. There it may be that some aij and then the next one is some bjk but different j, right? So we need to group them by j first to be able to do this. To do the multiplication, we need to group them by j first. Once that is done, we have done the multiplications, then from this we can do the sum. Okay, so that is basically the idea here. So that's why you need to sort by j first, and to do the multiplication aij bjk. In the first method, we were able to do that because we first did the join. First j was our key, so we are able to get the required aij bjks together. But in this case, j is not our key, so we have got ik as a key, so j's are all over the place, so you need to group the j's first. All right,
So if we sort first and then group by later, that would take much less time compared to just grouping by j.
If you sort first and group by later, sort by what first?
Sort by j. The idea here, it's sort by j and then group by j, right? Sort values and then group by j.
Oh, okay. So your question was why sort by j and group by j?
Yes, that was the question.
Well, what are you saying? Are you saying you need to group first or sort first?
No, I am saying that if I just group them by j without sorting, then what would be the issue?
Okay. So you can just group also, there is no problem. But how do you group actually? Usually grouping requires a sorting. I mean, if you want to write a program, okay, if you want to write a program and if you have a linear sequence of data, usually grouping requires sorting. But yes, I mean, I have no problem. I mean, this is basically group them by j. Sort was redundant to write here. I don't have to actually write sort.
Yes.
Okay. So, but typically sort is one of the usual and fast and practical ways to group. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be the only way. All right. So so we move to the next one. How much time do we have? 12:20. We are half an hour done. So we have 20 minutes. All right. So next, so we have seen several algorithms using MapReduce. Now you see my slides, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we have seen several algorithms using MapReduce. Now we'll of course see more, and of course you will do exercises and other stuff. But let's think about some ideas extending MapReduce. Okay. So or how can we, with some simple ideas, how can we improve certain things? So one of the simple observations are that if the aggregation operator in the reduce algorithm is associative and commutative, so it means associative means if star is the operator, okay, so it's a general representation. It could be plus, it could be multiplication, it could be min, max, or whatever. So if star is the operator, associative means whether you do A star B first and then C, you will get the same result as whether you do B star C first and then A, right? So summation is definitely like this, multiplication is also like this for normal numbers. And minimum is also the same thing, maximum is also the same thing. So most usual aggregation operations are associative. And commutative, that means you can do A star B or B star A, you will still get the same thing, right? So if they are associative and commutative, then it does not matter in which order we aggregate. Okay. And all the algorithms we have seen so far, it's the same. So then what we can do some work for reduce in the map step. So you can do some work upfront. For example, in the first word count problem, the hello world one, we were reading every word and outputting W, 1 for every word W. But what can happen is in one particular node, there are a lot of times this particular word appears. So we are actually generating so many same key value pairs for the same word, right? So instead, we can actually do some local computation. Obviously, the map function will not be that simple. The coding will be more difficult, but it will be much more efficient. So you can emit W, n for each document or each map task, where n is the number of times the word W appears in the whole input chunk. Then what will happen is you have done the local computation and you are going to output less number of key value pairs. Okay, you are going to output less number of key value pairs, and we'll see a bit later that will actually help us a lot. So this is this is one example of combining map and reduce, combining certain aspects of map and reduce. Especially, you can do more work upfront, then you will actually have a better, you will do better in the efficiency part. Okay, so I will, what I will do is I will cover some slides from here first. I'll reorder the slides later and upload. So there are other ways people have extended MapReduce or tried to extend MapReduce. Although to tell you upfront, they did not really take off much. They are too complicated, but still it's good to know what you can do. So the MapReduce is a two-step workflow, right? So you do a map, then the data flows, and then you do reduce. An extension can be any collection of functions connected by some acyclic graph. So for example, some function, I mean, this f is a function, like map is a function, right? So some generic function, then g, then h, and so on. So you can actually draw something like this. So where your first operation is f, the data from there goes to g and h, then g and h tasks happen, and then in some ways there can be dependencies and so on. So each function of the workflow can be executed by many tasks, just similar to MapReduce, just a more extended version of this. And then just like that, a master controller can divide the work among the tasks. It can keep track of the dependencies. Once one task is finished completely, then the successor can take it up, and so on, right? So there are experimental systems created by a couple of universities. However, they are too complicated, and the main problem is MapReduce itself was hard. It was hard to train normal people how to use MapReduce. So this was kind of way above that. Yes. So so these were extensions of MapReduce. But what really did matter was recursive use of MapReduce. So one map then reduce, but then the output of that reduce can go into another map and again reduce, right? So that's like we saw in this matrix multiplication case. Yes, we may have to do a two-step thing, or there are many algorithms like PageRank and several machine learning algorithms which are iterative, right? So you keep on doing the same thing over different many iterations. We will actually do many of these later in the course. So for that, this idea is important. Of course, then people did not create arbitrary structures like this. They kept the MapReduce or even simplified it further. And that's what we will see when we see Spark. Before going to that, let's quickly understand the cost of MapReduce based algorithms. You all have done complexity, algorithm and complexity, right? So looking at an algorithm, you can figure out, okay, this is the complexity. Is it asymptotic complexity, order n square, n log n, and all those things. But is it the same way we will look at MapReduce based algorithms too? No, it's actually very different. So just let's think of this long structure instead of the small MapReduce structure. So what actually happens here? So what happens is two kinds of costs are there. One is computation in the node. Like you read the document, split the text, find every word, output the word comma 1 or word comma n, right? So key value pairs. So that is the computation in the nodes. Or for reduce, you actually sum them, sum the numbers or do something like that. So that is the computation cost. And this is the complexity we are used to. We are used to, estimating complexity of computation cost. But there is another big one that is happening here. That is the transferring of data through network. That is the shuffle part, the communication cost. So all the key value pairs from all the nodes will have to be shuffled across maybe the same nodes, but they will not stay in the same node, right? So they will go into different nodes. There will be an exchange of data through the network, and that is why the network better be high speed, but that is the communication cost. And what happens is in MapReduce, this particular communication cost in between is the bottleneck most often. Why? Why is the communication cost the bottleneck most often? Because the algorithms executed by each task is usually very simple, and often it is linear in the size of input. Just recall all the things that we have done. Reading word, output w comma 1. You just read the data once, right? Matrix vector multiplication, read mij, output I comma mij vj. Matrix multiplication, the join, anything. You essentially read an output. All that you do is wisely choose a key. So the algorithm, or in reduce, you simply count, right? So they are usually linear in the size of input. And linear algorithms are very fast, right? So often that is very fast. But even if the network speed within cluster is very fast, it takes more time to transfer the data than the processor takes the time to execute the tasks. So what happens is, if you produce too many key value pairs, ultimately you are going to suffer in time. So yeah, so also another point is typically the data is stored in disk, and linear computation just after you have read the word, outputting w comma 1, that doesn't take time. What takes time is reading the word and writing the w comma 1 part. So there are two essential things where the main cost goes. One is the network, another is IO, the disk read write part. So what happens is the communication cost is the main bottleneck, and the disk read write part is also the main bottleneck, one of the bottlenecks. Hence, what matters is how much data are you transferring and how much data are you reading. So how is the communication cost calculated? Well, I mean, looking at the size of the data, we can all say this is order n. If we know the size of the data, 1 billion records, then we know, okay, this is 1 billion times some bytes, right? But the communication cost, we actually don't keep track of, because we don't keep track of how much data is flowing from one one node to another, right? So we are not keeping track of it, and we were actually assuming that the MapReduce engine is doing it for free. So we kind of did not want to bother about that so far. So how do we calculate the communication cost, or how do we estimate the communication cost effectively? So the simple estimate is the communication cost of a task is the size of the input to the task. Why so? It might sound too much simple, but why so? Why size of the input? Because most often the size of the input, so just think about, I mean, I don't have that picture in this slide here, but think about the flow, right? You have your input, then your map, then the shuffle, the network, then your reduce, right? So most often the size of the input should be greater than equal to the size of the output. Not always greater than, it may be equal or greater than equal. Why? Because if you have a huge amount of data and you are also producing huge amount of data as output, I mean, what are you going to do with it? I mean, if you are doing some kind of analytics, you are ultimately going to produce some report or some number, some summary, so that you get some insight. Or if you are actually producing a large output, then you are doing it for your next algorithm. So often the size of the input is greater than the size of the output, and even if the output is large, then it is input to another task, which means when you count the input for that task, you are going to count it. So size of the input is the main thing, because the output is either small or it is actually the input to another task. Oh, sorry. Okay. So this is why the size of the input is the main bottleneck. And let me actually, since I don't have this picture, let me explain to you through this picture here. So this means if you think of counting the communication cost in this big network of map and reduce functions or whatever, then the total communication cost is the amount of data coming into G, right? Size of the input to the function G, size of the input to the function H, size of the input to the function I, function J, and function K, right? So that's what ultimately will matter. Well, I kind of talked in a fashion so that we did not really think about the data read-write part, right? So no, that's also important. The data read-write part is also important, and the IO takes more time than the actual processing. So we'll have to do something about the IO. We don't want to read and write so many times. Just coming back to this beginning slide here, we'll actually do this again the next class again, but in this first slide here, no, I think this is fine. See, we have this data, apple, orange, peach, apple, peach, and all those things. We have to read them. We have to output key value pair. We have to write the key value pairs in the disk. So we are reading and writing. Then the shuffle will again read it from the disk, again send it to maybe another node. Again, that node, when it works for the reduce, it will read from the disk, aggregate somehow, and again write on the disk. So there are too many times reading and writing happening. This is one of the main motivations behind what we'll see as Spark. Okay. There's a bit of history. I will not talk about this. You can just read it up, or you can read it up later in other websites and things like that. But the main key point is MapReduce started in Google first, and it helped Google in two very key things. One was creating the inverted index for search. Okay, that's not something we'll see in this course. But that's still the backbone of web search or any kind of search engine. And another is computing PageRank, which we will see in this course, which is essentially repeated multiplication of a vector with a matrix. So with huge amount of data, at least these are two things, and there obviously were many other things for which MapReduce was invented. And of course, then other companies took it up and they created open source Hadoop and other things. All right. So any questions as of now? Okay, everybody, are you all with me? Can you just respond in some fashion that
Yes,
things are
yes.
fine?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I then take it as that you have understood all this. Now then is I will actually we will be able to move to little bit of just overview of Apache Spark, so that in the next class we can actually do the Spark hands-on. So there's no hands-on in this class. It's just giving you some basic idea about what Spark is supposed to be, right? So yes, okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so Apache Spark. So just like Apache Hadoop, I'm skipping the history and all those things. I mean, read it up if you need to. Let's go on to the technical side. So just as I was saying, so vanilla MapReduce is based on the an acyclic data flow, right? So you have this input, then map, key value pairs, shuffle, key value pairs, again reduce, output. And as I said, this is inefficient for applications that repeatedly reuse a working set of data. For example, iterative algorithms, machine learning algorithms, graph algorithms, again and again you want to do the same thing, right? So then you don't want to write and read so many times. And we don't have the flexibility of playing around with data. I mean, you have all played around with R or Python in some sense, right? So you have a shell, you can actually do quick this and that kind of count, size, length. With the vanilla MapReduce, you always have to write a map and a reduce. You have to submit the job. What if you just want to know how many data points are there? You just want to count, right? You don't want to. So programmability is not really there. Yeah, it gives you a good framework, the backbone, but it's not really so portable or so easily usable. And the problem, as I said, read write network and then read write, right? So can we reduce especially the read write part? A network we may not be able to reduce so much if we have a large amount of data and many clusters are essential. We won't be able to. But can we reduce the read write part? So yeah, so we do have a little bit of time. So essentially, limitations of vanilla MapReduce are: it's fine for one pass computation, but inefficient for multi-pass computations like k-means, PageRank, and so on. It's not efficient for data sharing. Each state between the steps will go into the file system, and it's not interactive or flexible. So apparently, for certain tasks, 90% of the time are spent during the I/O, because actually the computation cost is very low. The I/O cost is the high. So what Apache Spark aims to do, the goals are: extend the MapReduce model to better support two common classes of analytics apps. One is iterative algorithms, another is interactive data mining. It will also enhance programmability, and the way it will do it is by something called resilient distributed data sets. Okay, resilient distributed data set. Well, it will still be distributed, but a lot of things it will handle by itself. So we'll call them RDDs. So what it will do is it will allow the applications to keep the working sets of data. Working set means whatever it is working with at that point of time in memory as long as possible. So if you remember the, I mean, of course you remember the MapReduce algorithms we just talked about, they are very low memory intensive. You essentially don't use memory at all. You read write. Only in the last matrix multiplication case, we talked about memory, and then we said, yeah, if the data is very large, we'll have a problem. But if the data is not so large, we can actually do certain things in memory. So what happens is, a lot of time, and also memory is not as expensive as 20 years ago anymore. So a lot of time what happens is, yeah, we can use more memory, and with a vanilla MapReduce algorithm, we are not using memory at all. So that's where we can improve. But we want to retain all the advantages of MapReduce, like fault tolerance, data locality, and scalability. Essentially, the shift will be usability and memory efficiency. Okay. and will support a wide range of applications. So this is the goal and approach of Spark, and it will achieve that using RDDs. And what are the RDDs? The RDDs are read-only partitioned collections of records. We'll actually create RDDs in the next class. It can be created by some data from the file system or from another RDD. That means you have computed something before. Whatever you are creating is also an RDD. Each RDD will include a set of partitions. Okay, certain things may not be absolutely clear now, but we'll refer to these slides when you do the hands-on. And a set of dependencies on parent RDD. That means how is this RDD created? By what computation path is this created? Okay, and a function for computing the dataset based on its parents. So if some fault happens, then it can actually go back to that. Okay, so just quickly coming to this fault tolerance thing. So it will have enough information about how it was derived from the other data sets. And the users can control two aspects of the RDDs. One is how much of RAM should I use? Should I use no RAM or should I use fully RAM? And partitioning. Okay, so how many partitions do I need to make? So it will be interesting to see that even on my local Mac or local notebook, I can actually decide how many partitions of the data do I want to make. The transformations are lazy. They don't really compute right away. So you can actually keep writing functions and functions, but ultimately until you call for an output, it will not compute. So they are lazy. By that, they will actually save some computation. It's written in Scala. So Scala is actually a high-level language for JVM, and it's object-oriented plus functional, statically typed. We'll not actually look at Scala, but the main point to note here is that it is comparable in speed to Java, which means it's very fast. You can call Scala from Scala. You can use Java classes in Scala and all those things, but you can also Scala code from Java, but you can also all those things from Python. And that is where we will come to. Although PySpark, so that means the Python Spark, is slower than Java or Scala, native Java and Scala in performance, in many cases 2 to 3 times slower. But PySpark is gaining a lot of popularity because Python is used widely. So you can actually plug it into many other things with many other libraries so easily. So that is why PySpark is being used widely. Just the last thing on memory management. I think I'm overshooting by 4 minutes. These are the last things. So Spark provides 3 options. One is in memory. That means use all your memory. Okay, so keep as much as possible in memory. So this will of course be the fastest if you have more memory. In memory as well as serialized data. So this means it will be, the efficiency will be medium. And the last is on disk. So don't use memory at all. So this will like default to almost vanilla MapReduce for certain tasks. All right. So yeah, so this is what we had for today. If you have any questions, please ask. As usual, I have changed certain parts of the slides. I will upload the updated MapReduce slides and the new Spark slides to the website and the video as usual. Okay, any questions? All right, looks like everything is fine. So then folks, see you in the, oh, by the way, we decided we will have a doubt clearing session Friday 2 p.m., right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Friday 2 p.m. I will send out the invite. It's optional. If you have doubts on the classes so far or for any other things, I will be present. You can join. Okay, so whoever will join, they can just speak to me on doubts. All right, so I'll upload the slides and things like and slides and the video on the website. Thank you. Bye. So see you in the next class.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.